Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for coming out. My name is Rafe Lieber. I'm the Executive Director of NYSAFE, which stands for New Yorkers Stand Against Insurance Fraud. First, I'd like to thank Senator Greg Ball and County Executive Astorino for joining us here today in Westchester. New Yorkers Stand Against Insurance Fraud began because basically I took a look at my insurance bill and I didn't really understand why it kept going up and up and up. And I began speaking with my neighbors and friends, and they felt the same way. So I decided that I wanted to do something about it. And I did a little research and found out that auto insurance fraud over the last 2 years is costing New York State drivers almost $500 million. We are 53%, our insurance rates are 53% higher than the rates in the rest of the country. Where I live in Nassau County, we're paying 130% of the state average in auto insurance fraud. And I felt that that was completely unacceptable. So I found out that there was a bill in the state legislature sponsored by, the main sponsor by Senator Seward in the Senate and Assemblyman Morelli in the Assembly, both chairs of the Insurance Committee, to do something about curbing the ridiculous rate of auto insurance fraud in New York State. So I looked at the bill. I decided that I absolutely support it because we're paying so much to live in New York State. We pay the highest property taxes in the nation. The gasoline is skyrocketing, and a lot of those things, especially with gasoline, the New York State legislature really doesn't have that much control over it, although I would like to thank the state senate for passing the gas tax on it. But this, on auto insurance fraud, the legislature really has the power to make significant changes that are going to impact every single New York State driver. So I attended an insurance committee hearing with Senator Seward, Golden, and Senator Martins regarding this issue. And we've already had a press conference with the Nassau County Executive, and now we're here today in Westchester spreading the word. Because, frankly, this is completely unsustainable. I am really just a citizen who is sick and tired and fed up with paying the high premiums for auto insurance. So I started NYSAFE, and basically NYSAFE is 19 million New Yorkers strong. Everybody who drives is a member of our organization. And we're really pushing the legislature now to move this bill. And we're very happy to have elected officials from the legislature, also on the county level, to help us spread the word, because we can't do it alone. And we need people who have the ability to do something about this, to really help us and join us to spread the word. So that's why we're here today. Again, I'd like to thank Senator Ball and County Executive Astorino for joining us. I would like to now take this opportunity to introduce the latest co-sponsor of the bill, of Senator Seward's bill, Senator Greg Ball. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, I'll be brief because I know that you all have questions afterwards, but really and truly, first I want to thank County Executive Rob Astorino for being here, because it's fundamentally important that we actually have the grassroots support that we need throughout New York State to make sure that this legislation passes both houses. Let's make no mistake about it, the folks who are going to try to stop any reforms that will bring about direct relief to the blue-collar people who live all throughout New York State are the trial attorneys who have a very aggressive and strong lobby in New York State. So we have to be very serious about that. What are we talking about? We're talking about New York State that has an openly inhospitable environment for small business owners, for blue-collar families, for working families and seniors on many fronts. And this is one more nail in the coffin that was once a great state, the Empire State. We have the highest, one of the highest rates of auto insurance in the United States of America. And we have a over $1 billion industry that is being created by legislative loophole that is a windfall for illegal enterprise and corrupt enterprise in New York State. The way that the law has been fashioned through no fault has really created a lottery for those seeking to break the law. And I'll give you a couple of examples. First, New York State law requires that all these claims be metered out within 30 days. Even if you find malfeasance or corruption after the 30 days, those claims are still awarded. Number two, we do not require that you actually show real medical damage or harm. All a medical practice, in some instance, a false, a corrupt medical practice it has to do is actually provide a bill, and that is then paid. So there have been huge loopholes that have been placed in this, and in the sense of malpractice, where you would want to see repercussions for malpractice, not only within the medical industry, but on the other side, it has become so cumbersome in the law that was passed that you're unable to actually go after those who are breaking the law and committing both insurance and medical fraud. So the bill that we have has bipartisan support. It'll take New York State where we need to go to make sure that we are no longer one in all the wrong ways. We have a county executive in Westchester County that understands quite clearly and is on the front lines of making Westchester County more hospitable to business owners and taxpayers. We also have a Democratic governor who has suggested that New York State does not have a future in being number one in all the wrong ways. This bill will correct that and put us back into the land of sanity, which would be a nice change for Albany. And on that front, I'd like to introduce my favorite county executive, Rob Astorino.
Do you say that in Putnam to the Putnam County Executive?
I do, when he's not looking.
Thank you, Senator Ball, and Rafe, thank you very much. So we know there's a problem that exists, and we know one way to solve this problem. Right now in Westchester County does pay exactly 53% higher for premiums for car insurance than the rest of the nation. So we know what the root cause of this is. Fraud is a driving force of this. Knowing that, we've got to close that loophole and start driving costs down so people can actually live here and work here and drive here. Knowing what the problem is, people have to decide, the state legislature has to decide whether or not they're going to side with hard-working, tax-paying consumers or with organized crime, which is driving this fraud. And that's really what it comes down to. And so hopefully, and I know Senator Greg Ball is a driving force behind this legislation, we will have enough steam in the Senate and of course the legislature on the other side with the Assembly to pass this bill that hopefully the governor will sign and we can start cracking down on this fraud. It is very difficult with the business climate, with the taxes and everything else that we have to pay here in Westchester and in the Hudson Valley and in New York State to stay here. And as businesses are crying the blues and deciding whether to stay here or not and take their jobs with it, this is one area where nobody loves to root for the insurance companies, but they are losing a lot of money on this as well, and they could easily pull out of New York and take all those jobs with them and drive up premiums for those who are left. So this is a no-brainer, and I'm asking the state legislature and the governor to pass this on behalf of the consumers of New York and Westchester.
Any questions?
Yeah, a question that I have is some of this fueled by the bad economy? That some people who wouldn't otherwise exaggerate their claims or make them up completely are more compelled to do so because these are tough economic times. I'm not suggesting that they should, but is that why we're seeing? Is that also why we're seeing an increase? You know, it's tough out there. Some people who get an offender bender exaggerate.
You know, this is fueled by actual organized crime. So organized crime has always been here, and I don't know that it's going away anytime in the future. So I don't know that it's necessarily fueled by the economy, because this is a business. It's an illegal business, but this is truly a business. Why we're doing this now, though, is the state legislature actually has the power to shut this business down.
Could you give us some examples of how this would be, how this, once you get this law, what would change and what would make it easier to go after these crime syndicates that Charlie must have? They must be very complex.
They are. You have the runners who are the ones who drive the car. You have the bad actors, the lawyers who are taking advantage. You have medical providers who are submitting and processing these false claims. So some of the things I think that the legislation does that will help is lifting the cap on the 30-day window will give insurance companies investigators the tools to really look at some of these bad claims. The legislation will decertify these medical providers that are found to be part of it. So
Which is not happening now.
Which is not happening now. So it's criminalizing part of this business that actually is not criminal. So there are a number of things that can happen. As I've said, the best thing that can happen to myself and my organization is that the state legislature puts us out of business. That's what I want to see happen. I want to go away. I never want to talk. I don't want to have to talk about this issue because if the legislature does what's right, and again, I thank Senator Ball and his colleagues in the Senate for really taking this on and pushing this. If they do what's right, then there will be no reason to push this anymore because we'll have real insurance reform in New York State.
I do have another question. There's a video that you guys are going to put out for someone as the FBI. It's undercover. Have you seen the video that will be provided to us and what it? And talk a little bit about it.
I have not seen the.
Okay, I don't know if anybody here has. Okay.
Your desk has it.
Our desk has it.
Yes.
Okay. So sometimes it's caught on tape. Do cameras help? Can anyone answer to that? Like catching these, when you want to catch these people who are perpetrating this fraud, are there some tools that are helping? For example, cameras catching an accident, seeing that someone, that kind
I
of
would
thing.
think video evidence would always be.
I think if I can just make a follow-up point, in New York State, we're terrorist target number one, and outside Jerusalem. And when you look at the funding streams that sometimes seem unconventional, it's not always a direct transfer. And what you have seen, you've seen links even with trafficking in cigarettes. You're seeing links to criminal activity now with insurance fraud. And it must be understood that the way that the legislation has been written in New York State has actually created a huge loophole to actually incentivize criminal activity. It's as if the New York State legislature, and I'm not saying that they purposely wanted to do this, but the New York State legislature would have had a hard time sitting down and crafting a more perfect bill to subsidize criminal activity than they are at the current moment with the status quo.
What do you think about now the trial lawyers that are really the ones that are perpetrating this whole entire crime?
Unfortunately, the trial lawyers, it seems to be business as usual with them. They want to maintain the status quo because it lines their pockets at the expense of every New York driver, and that's completely and totally unacceptable.
And they like the way it's going. I'm not saying that they're involved with the fraud, but there must be some knowledge that some of these cases are fraudulent. They keep churning them out. They work on volume, and they love it because the industry is worth at least if you took 20% contingency, and in a lot of cases it's higher. You're talking about $200 million they're making every year. It should be stated it's criminal enterprises. It's a lot of different organized groups of people that stage these car accidents because we have this window of opportunity. They work with the medical mills and the lawyers because of a $50,000 window of opportunity. So all of a sudden, and there's two types. There's the staged car accidents where we have all these fake injuries. If you get 6 injured parties or alleged injured parties in a staged car accident, you're not looking at $50,000 window. You're looking at a $300,000 grab because it's 6 times $50,000.
And just to be clear, when you use the term organized, you're not necessarily talking about one person.
No, it's any kind of organized group. That's why I like to use the term criminal enterprise. So there's criminal enterprises out there that have organized. It's such a big business. It's hundreds of millions of dollars a year, big business, and it's at epic proportions right now where they're either staging car accidents or, on the other hand, a real car accident where there's some injury or very little injury, and they create injuries using these medical mills, knowing that the medical mill could bill up to $50,000 on this stuff. So you'll take maybe $500 worth of medical treatment to fix up a little cut or something like that, and all of a sudden they're put out, having their in some cases, in chiropractic cases, having their bodies manipulated for $50,000, for it could be $25,000 per treatment. That's one way. We're seeing fake brain scans. Every brain scan is like a fingerprint. It's individual. So now we're seeing them use brain scans from past patients and inserting it into these patients. There's so many different ways to cheat the system, but these organized groups have found every single way to do it at the expense of New Yorkers.